Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome into a fabulous Friday. It is time for the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast. You know what time it is. I'm very excited to hang out with the faithful and Johnny. But Johnny, I gotta ask you, you may turn into a grumpy Gus here for a little bit.
A grumpy Gus, huh?
Thanks for all those that are making him a little bit more happy, seeing all the JD 49s and all the comments. Cayman's Island, we always forgive you every time, even though we're about to give away a car. So Johnny, tell us, Lois, what grinds your gears? That's my
what?
That's
Was
my family guy. That's my family guy.
About?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll get this out of the way because I don't know if everybody has seen these. There's a lot of quarterback rankings that come out this time of year. It's always a kind of dead zone between. Anytime there's a dead zone, like the media will always default to, okay, let's talk about quarterbacks. Like it does. And so you have this little dead zone between the draft and OTAs kicking off with all these teams. And so what do people do? They put out a quarterback rankings. When you have mini camps wrap up in June, during July, you're going to see more quarterback rankings. They always come out. And that little period after the Super Bowl, before free agency, you know what always comes out? A quarterback rankings list. So it's like everybody does this. And then there's going to be more that come out during that time between the end of training camp and the start of the regular season, right? Like somebody in there's people doing quarterback rankings lists that happens in these dead zones because it's just a default to, if there's nothing else to talk about or we can't figure out what else to talk about because sometimes the content is a mile wide and an inch deep, that sorry, I had a little cough there. That it's default to quarterbacks and get everybody stirred up talking about their quarterbacks or why their quarterback's great, why their quarterback's not great. Well, recently we've had a couple with Brock Purdy at the center and literally at the center in the middle of their rankings. So like Mina Kimes and Benjamin Solak, they did if you're starting a franchise and this is going to be your quarterback for the next 3 years, who would you pick? They had Brock Purdy at number 15, which is hilarious to read to listen to their reasoning, because basically like he's above average because they're like, we're at the slightly above average kind of grade, slightly above average. Okay. And it's like, he's really good at a lot of these things. And in all the numbers, he's really good, but we think he's just slightly above average. It becomes kind of ridiculous. And I've said this for a while. These rankings reveal more about who is ranking the quarterbacks than it does anything about these quarterbacks. You had Chris Sims recently come out, and he had Brock Purdy as his 17th ranked quarterback in the league. When we're putting guys like CJ Stroud in front of Brock Purdy, I'm sorry, I can't take your list seriously. Why? And why do they do that? Because at one point in his career, CJ Stroud rolled right and threw a ball 55 yards down the field. Like, that is literally the moment, like the trait that they see and say, this is something Brock can't do, and therefore he will never be in this range. Like, that's why it's silly to me, because it tells me that you value that, because that is easily quantifiable. Everything else is much harder to quantify. It
tells you you don't watch Niners without telling me you don't watch the Niners. Randy C. checking in. I love that.
Well, basically, and look, I get it. There are 32 teams playing 17 games and then playoff games. This is a lot of film to go through. It's a lot of offenses to keep up with. It's a lot of offenses to follow their trends on and remember what's going on. So yes, I'm not saying that Benjamin Solak doesn't watch film. He does. I just doubt that he's watching every single game of every single team, and he's analyzing every single drop back the same way. I just don't think it is. And I also understand it's harder mentally to keep track of what you have seen from game to game to game to game and put a comprehensive understanding of the entire offense of each individual system. That's just really, really hard to do. That's why, like, Greg Cosell has a staff that does this stuff. Like, it's not just him. It is, he has him and he has some people that he works with, and they do this kind of stuff all the time. And they're not prepping with producers for shows, and they're not, going through the cycle. Like, so what it tells me is there are certain highlight plays that you don't think Brock can make. And so therefore he is instantly down this list. And it's like, since when have we just reverted to that as our primary means of evaluation? I get it. We're trying to be more than just win-losses, because we've seen some quarterbacks have really good win-loss and didn't really amount to much. But when you watch CJ Stroud fall apart in the playoffs for 3 years, and clearly he cannot rise to an occasion, and you see Brock Purdy lead multiple comebacks in the playoffs, win a lot of playoff games, play at a really high level, be at the top of the league in nearly every single metric, it becomes hard to say that one play rolling right and throwing it 55 yards downfield. Because I remember when CJ Stroud did that was during his rookie year. People were commenting, we know he's elite. We know he's elite now. And I'm like, what? Was this when? Like, I've seen Justin Fields do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So I remember Justin Fields made in his pro day one of the wildest throws anybody's ever seen. And
Jamarcus Russell from his knees.
Yeah, the whole media were ready to crown Justin Fields as the next superstar quarterback that was a sure thing. And how's that turned out?
Yeah,
not real great, right? So I just don't buy a lot of this stuff. And it's weird to me that some of the same media people who will criticize Shanahan up and down for not winning a Super Bowl will then turn around and say the only reason that Brock Purdy is top 3 in like 90% of quarterback categories is because of Kyle Shanahan. Like, which is it? Is he the absolute football genius that is just head and shoulders above everybody? Or is he the guy that should be on the hot seat if they don't make the playoffs this year? Like, right. It doesn't make sense to me. And then you have Chris Sims saying he's the 17th overall player. And he's like, well, he's a guy who won't do more with less. And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? More with less? He won't do more with less? Like, when do we get rid of this perception that the 49ers have all these playmakers everywhere? Like, what about last season? And there's also this weird concept that Mac Jones came in and played just as well as Brock Purdy. And I go, no, he didn't. I'm not saying that Mac Jones played bad. I love the heck out of Mac Jones, and I'm so thankful for what he was able to do to come in during those 8 games and keep the playoff dreams alive at 5-3. He also threw 60% of the touchdowns in that time that Brock over the same amount of games as Brock. He scored 10 fewer touchdowns in 8 games than Brock Purdy. That comes out to you're scoring over 7 points a game less with this guy than that guy. That is a huge margin in the NFL. Huge margin. The points per game was a 7.8 difference, I think. Like, that is a massive difference that's the difference in those 3 losses, is that kind of points per game difference. And so, like, you see, this is not the same offense at all. That Christian McCaffrey was way ahead of a pace for 1,000 yards receiving season, right? Because Mac just didn't want to push the ball down the field. He didn't want to risk some tight window throws. And so they didn't get as many first downs. Like, yes, Brock threw a couple more interceptions, but he got a lot more first downs. And in the end, the defense spent less time on the field with Brock as it did with Mac, because Mac was constantly checking the ball down because he didn't trust that those throws were going to be there, or he didn't have the early anticipation that Brock does. He wasn't pushing the ball in the same areas that Brock was at the same rates and consistency, wasn't moving defenders the same way. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous to a point of, you're like, at 17th overall. Are you kidding me? His number 1 receiver the last 2 years just went through 2 months of free agency of not being signed, and got signed as the number 3 wide receiver at another team that didn't make the playoffs. Let's really think about this. And we're going to say that he's not doing more with less. I love Juwan Jennings as a player, as the way he plays the game. I do not love Juwan Jennings as my number 1 wide receiver. There are clear limitations there. Like, this isn't quite the same thing as quarterback when you say there's physical limitations, that he can do so many things well and he can overcome that. There's just a point where you're 4.7 speed. There's no overcoming that. You're not running those deep balls, those go balls down the sideline. You will never do that. You're not going to push the safeties deep. Like, it's just not happening. There's a cap on how many yards after catch you can get because you're not running away from people. So this idea that he's not doing more. The guy beat the Eagles without George Kittle, who got down to a torn Achilles, with Demarcus Robinson as his highest producing receiver in that game,
who couldn't score a touchdown, couldn't outrun anybody,
who got 5 yards behind the Philadelphia defense and didn't score a touchdown. Like, this is getting ridiculous. So if you've seen any of these, this just reveals more about the process that Chris Sims goes through in watching quarterbacks, which is he doesn't watch a lot of film. He doesn't go through the minutia of what they do. It's glossing over some stats and then from my memory of the games and putting out some arbitrary list. Same thing with Mina Kimes and Benjamin Solak is that, and look, I know they got some diehard supporters. I am not one of them. It's not anything personal. I just, their approach, I feel, I won't go into it anymore. Anyways, I feel like that there's some, I've decided a narrative and then I'm going to have evidence to back that up instead of I'm letting the evidence show me what it is. So, but anyways, it tells you about their approach. And that is these splash plays mean more. The big arm means more. Like, and I don't know if that it'll ever really fall away from that. I mean, Kyle Bowler was considered like going to be the greatest quarterback ever coming out because dude had one of the biggest arms that has ever existed. Look, I think there's enough data over the last 46 years in the NFL that big arm quarterbacks do not equal success. When you look at the greatest quarterbacks of any of their eras, those quarterbacks, none of them had the biggest arm of their generation. I mean, the only argument you might make is Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think Aaron Rodgers is the greatest quarterback of his generation. You got Tom Brady during that time. You got Peyton Manning at that time. You got Drew Brees during that time. I would take all three of those guys ahead of Aaron Rodgers. And you look at, I would take Steve Young over Brett Favre in a heartbeat, like in an instant. And they were two of the top they were probably the two top quarterbacks of the 90s, as far as, MVPs and what everybody saw in there. And they played in the same system. Brett Favre was the big arm guy. Steve Young was not. I would take Steve Young every day of the week. You go into the 80s, I would take Joe Montana over Dan Marino any day of the week. So, like, you look at this, and it's just like these big arm guys. I understand the allure of it, but give me all those other guys that weren't big arm guys, but were A+ from the shoulders up, and I will take that any day of the week. And anybody trying to spin this as if Purdy is not that, is they will reveal themselves as a joker.
Yeah, and this leads us into today's topic as a caveat here. Man, it takes Johnny a long time to dissect and go through film. We have more film coming, but
on the draft picks, part of it was, being honest, I hit a wall. I was grinding through so much tape. When you watch through like 70+ games, there's just kind of hit a wall. You're like, I need a mental break from this for a week. Plus, my wife was out of town for 3 days, and I was a single dad for a few days, and it was hard to get a lot of film work done. I've got about half of Ephesians Prize Talk done, but I just haven't gotten to it all. But we have OTAs have kicked off, and so I'm excited about OTAs. OTAs means it is the start of phase 3. So phase 3, that's not just a club term. It isn't the 49ers have determined we have phase 1, we have phase 2, and we have phase 3. It's actually outlined in the CBA with the players union and the league. So there's strict phases that each team can go through. That's 9 weeks long. And so you have phase 1 where there's no coaches interaction at all. Like, they are not allowed to, they can do some limited classwork, but I think it's only like an hour a day, only a couple days a week. And it has to be voluntary. They cannot say, punish somebody for not being there. That's why almost every single contract has $100,000 workout bonus, because that's how they say, okay, if you're here for any for the off-season program, 9 weeks, you'll get $100,000. They can't punish people for not being there during that off-season program. So phase 1 is the first 3 weeks. They can work with strength and conditioning coaches. They can do some on-field work with strength and conditioning coaches, but like, coaches cannot be out on the field when players are out on the field. They can't be with the players during most of it. They can have some conversations, and like, if the player wants to go over film, they can, but it's going to be very, very, very limited, very limited. Phase 2 opens up, which is 90% of when the real work gets done that we don't ever see. So phase 2 opens up with where they can now do some on-field work with coaches, but it's, again, limited to their total time in the building is 4 hours or less. So that's time for workouts, that's time for in-staff meetings, and then any on-field drills. And they can't do any offense versus defense. They don't want any competition going. They can go out and do like offense versus offense. So a lot of what happens are position drills where you have, like, an offensive guy is going to be holding a bag and somebody else is doing drills. And I know it can seem like, oh, it's just drills. Oh, it's just drills. It's actually one of the more important phases for different positions and stuff. So I'll share this a little bit. I can't share too much because this is a pay for thing. I don't know if I did the just a sec. I need to make sure I bring this up with the system audio. Okay. So here's just an idea of what these drills during phase 2 look like. So this is, you got Chris Forrester over here. standing watching these linemen. He's going to explain these drills a little bit.
I don't like that saying, but it's as simple as this. And this is from our phase 2 practices. So it's nothing. 1 or 2 came from last year. Just pulled the most recent ones. All right. So we do that. It's really as simple for us as stance and starts. When you really look at it, as far as our aiming points, angles, and footwork, everything it's either we're stepping vertically, we're stepping on an angle of some sort, or we're going to step flat. Okay. And we'll look at the 3 things. And what we do is a visual here. This dude's a center. That guy's a tackle. I say at the very least, you should have that down hand a yard off the ball. So as you run off the ball, I want you coming off as fast as you can come off, just for 2 or 3 yards. We're not trying to break any land speed records here. But what we're trying to do is, and as I go, this is a right foot lead step. That second step gets in the ground, which you can barely see there with the tackle, before it crosses that line. 1, 2. I don't want to patter my feet. I'm not shuffling, but I'm running. But yet I'm running so I can get my second step in the ground. So in theory, before I get to the defender who's the line is the ball, before I get to him, I have my second step in the ground. I'm able to generate some force and power as I run off the ball.
So that is what they've been working on with phase 2. Most people don't understand like that side of it. They film all of it, they go over it, they show the players it, and it is working on every technique that you're trying to accomplish. And like that with the offensive line, I think that's a really good insight into what they're trying to do during this time of the year, of teaching guys every bit of the technique of their positions. And so this is something where it's difficult for me, because when they like open up practices to the media, very few guys have tried to dive into any of this stuff. And so you hear nothing about individual drills. There's weird cameras on it. Oh, there's things being said that are just nothing burgers or have nothing to do with what they're actually trying to accomplish, because they don't understand what is the goal of this drill. They don't understand what is the goal of what are they trying to teach during this time. But those are some of the most valuable moments during OTAs, during mini camps, during the spring drills. So, and so like it's fascinating to see this. That's what they've been working through, and that's what they're going through phase 2, is some of these individual drills. Like he said, that these were clips from phase 2. So they finished up phase 2, and now they start doing. Now they can do phase 3, which they get 10 OTAs, which are organized team activities. They'll usually say and mini camps are a part of that. So mini camp, the designation of a mini camp, they're allowed to do some more pads. They can go full speed. They're allowed to do more 11 on 11, whereas like during OTAs, they can do 7 on 7. They can do 9 on 7. They can do a few reps of 11 on 11. They can only wear soft shell pads and helmets. Then when they get to mini camp, they can do some shoulder pads. They can't do full leg pads, and they can do a little bit more contact, but not much. Each team tries to take it pretty lightly through that stuff because they want to avoid injury. But we're now into the OTAs portion. So this is where it becomes interesting, because, and it leads into what we're going to talk about, is that this is where the previous 3 weeks of working on your footwork, working on your hand placement, working on your releases, working on your route running, working on your back pedal, working on your eye discipline, all those things that they've been working on, the technical sides of this for the last 3 weeks, start to get put onto the field. And then they really install the defenses. So phase 1 is get in shape. Phase 2 is here's our technique. We're going to work on our technique. Phase 3 is now we're going to build the defense around this. And then they take a break for a month, and they're not allowed to do anything with the players. And then everybody reports for training camp. So we're into that. Now they're building the defense. So, some of these questions like they had at the presser yesterday about the things that they're planning on doing with the defense, I'm not a full believer that is even fully set right now. I think there's about 3/4 of that is set, and they're installing it currently now. You can, if you ever have gone through any spring install playbooks, it's about 65-70% of what the actual training camp playbook is, if you've ever seen the two. So like the asking questions to Raheem Morris of what the defense is going to be right now or what they're going to run, he's got about 2/3 of it ready. but they're not gonna have the full installs until training camp. They're gonna have like the base stuff, but anything beyond that is not put together yet.
So this is a perfect time for the super chat because it'll lead us into where we want to go. Brock Purdy is being profiled by the media because he's Mr. Blah, blah. You know what it is. Until he wins it all, he'll continue to be profiled, unfortunately. Thank you, Frank Rivers, for the super chat. And that's what also was mentioned earlier. I think it was either Taradome or Callie or Tracy. Someone said it's all depending on what the agenda is. You know, ESPN going more political or always talking about Lakers, or like it just depends on what the agenda of the day is. So agreed. But I like that he brought up Brock Purdy because I want to get into now, Johnny, the topic for today, who has the most to prove. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to give you my top 3 and some honorable mentions, and then you take and run with it. For now, you can piggyback off me. I am just carrying your water. So
oh no.
So okay. So here's what I'll say about Brock Purdy. He is on my list of top 3 because of because of the first 10 minutes of the show, Johnny. That is the exact reason why.
Okay.
Because there is some noise out there that, look, he was hurt last year. He only played half the games. He blah, 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 blah. And so now he's healthy. Now he's got a healthy wide receiver group. All right, Brock, you better throw for 9 million yards now. So he's on my list of, like, I'm throwing a curveball out there. And then my second.
Okay. Well, no, we'll get to the second or third. So we'll ping pong on this. You do one, I'll do one, and then we'll go through there. Okay, so your number one guy that has the most to prove this season is Brock Purdy.
No. Man. He's not my number. No.
He's I'm
leading based off of the super chat. My number one is Ricky Pearsall. My number one.
Okay, so is Brock in your 3?
He is number 3.
Okay, well, you ruined the surprise of number 1. Okay, but so you're third.
You all this info.
Okay, so
and letting you take
your third guy is Brock Purdy, huh? Yeah. I will say the only thing Brock has to prove this year is that he can play all 17 games again. Not that, because he did that. Well, I'll say he played 16 technically in 2023, but they rested him the last week. Like, so it wasn't like he couldn't do it. He had the injury in 2022. He dealt with some injuries in 2024, and then has had obviously the toe all last year. So Brock needs to stay healthy. In that sense, I think it's more up to the offensive line and the run game to keep him healthy, keep him upright, get him hit less. That's what I need to see less. And he also needs some more playmakers so he's not holding the ball so long. Guys got to get open, and they got to get open early. So I think for me, I look at this and I say, I don't think Brock's really got anything to prove to anybody. I think he, because of who he is, wants to win a Super Bowl more than anything. He's been paid. He's gone from the least paid quarterback in the NFL to one of the highest. He's got generational wealth now. So the next thing for him to prove is that you can go win a Super Bowl. He's probably never going to be voted all pro just because of the perceptions of Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Like, those guys, I don't think Brock could probably, because Pat has 3 Super Bowls right now. Brock could win 4 and probably would still not be voted AP over Patrick Mahomes, just because of the aura that is there over him, right? And how some of those happened. So, like, Brock, you're never going to be voted AP. That is something that you will never be able to prove. For him, prove that you can play 17 games with this roster, you have a chance at a Super Bowl. So I don't think he's got a lot to prove, at least not to me. Maybe to some And even then, I don't think he's even got much to prove to media, because there's just people that will not change their mind. If like we said on the quarterback rankings list, if somebody has already made up their mind that he is a 17th ranked quarterback now after what he's shown, you could go win a Super Bowl and at best they're going to rank him at 10th. Like, it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah.
Like, if what he has put out on the field, if you score 10 touchdowns in 2 games, and here's what's ridiculous about that. Okay, so if you go back to the Monday Night Football game where Aldon Smith sacked a quarterback, got 5.5 sacks. It was a Monday Night Football record. Who in their right mind ever asked, well, who was blocking him? Nobody asked that question.
It was an NFL player. That's who was blocking him.
They said that this was an incredible feat, because that's an incredible feat. You're playing against an NFL player.
Yeah.
So when Brock Purdy goes out and scores 10 touchdowns in 2 weeks, what do people say? Do they say, wow, that was really No, they say, well, what defenses was he playing against? And I'm like, okay.
An NFL one.
Now we're saying, well, that doesn't really count. I mean, are we going to sit here and go through and say, well, Matt Stafford, we should maybe reevaluate that MVP, because
now
you got to look at,
teams.
Some of the teams that he did play. Let's look at his highest performing games. They were against defenses that weren't as good. Well, duh, but it's still an NFL defense. So okay. You can say that Brock has a lot to prove. He doesn't have anything to prove to me, and I don't think he can prove anything. I don't think he can prove anything to the media. So I'm going to push back on that one there, Mr. Marino.
This isn't my list of like personal to.
Oh no, I get your logic. He's got to prove to the world that he's not Mr. Relevant, and I'm telling you,
though I disagree with that,
I don't think it's possible. Like, that's going to be a career-long trajectory for him. Yeah. Like, that's the chip he's going to have on his shoulder. So I don't see that as he's got the most to prove now. He's got to prove, like, he has to wake up every day and prove why he belongs in the NFL, where other guys don't. They've got the credentials of their, like, attributes that everybody's going to believe that they're an NFL player. There's a reason Trey Lance is still in the NFL, because there's attributes that people believe in. Like that's just that's the reality of it. So my number one guy that I think has the most to prove is Jacob Cowing. I think Jacob Cowing has the most to prove, because we've been hearing about how Jacob Cowing was going to be that Santana Moss guy in Shanahan's offense, that guy who could just be the blazing speed, who could be the Marquise Goodwin who was here before, that could take the top off a defense that was blazing speed, put him in the slot, cannot be covered, and if you do, it's going to take 2 guys. It's going to open everything up for everybody else. We heard last year how good he looked during minicamp, during OTAs, during training camp. And then at the start of training camp, and then he pulled his hamstring and was out the entire year. I still don't understand how you are out for an entire year, how you re-aggravate your hamstring that many times. There was clearly something wrong in the training room, and the monitoring, or with the player himself. Something was not right. But we've been hearing for a couple of years the potential that is there with Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing has done almost nothing on the field for the 49ers. And so I go, this is now the time you have got to prove it. You have got to prove it. There's no more patience for, and as much as that sucks, to say you don't have the luxury of getting injured this year. Like, you've got to have your body, whatever you're doing in your region or whatever has to happen. You have got to be on every single step of that, because you do not have the luxury of getting behind at all. If I hear Jacob Cowing has got a high ankle sprain during minicamp, I will say, there goes his season. That's just how I'm gonna approach it, because you have Christian Kirk, who is here, who is a dynamic slot guy, and he's got speed, and they brought him in to do that. Jordan Watkins, who we'll talk about in a minute, is nipping at your heels, and you're fighting for playing time with those guys. It's going to be who can be a returner during that time, who can stay on the field, who can block That's going to be a big deal this year because they got 3 big dogs that are slotted at the top of the depth chart, and in Dejon Stribling, Ricky Pearsall, and Mike Evans. So there is not room for Demarcus Robinson, Jacob Cowing, Jordan Watkins, and Christian Kirk in the rest of the receiver room. I don't think they take 7. I don't think they take 7 into the regular season. One of you 4 is going to be out of here. So the 4 of you are like dogs in a dogfight pen. Like, one of you is not leaving. And so who's it going to be? And for me, I'm looking at Jacob Cowing and I'm saying yours makes some of the least sense. Demarcus Robinson's under contract and it'll cost them dead money to release him. When it comes down to the regular season, he's a veteran. He was actually able to play last year. I know he got suspended 3 games for everything, but at least he was on the field. Jacob Cowing, you weren't. You weren't on the field at all. You couldn't rehab enough to get back on the field. Jordan Watkins is young. We got him on a rookie contract longer than you, so he's cheaper than you over the long term. So he's got that advantage. And Christian Kirk, we just signed him. We just gave him a $6 million contract. So we believe in him and we want him on the field. So Jacob Cowing, you have a lot to prove right now. I think for me, I'm going in reverse order. The number 1 most to prove, and then the number 3. So we're kind of in reverse order. But Jacob Cowing, if you don't prove it now during these OTAs and minicamp, you're going to be coming into training camp as the odd man out, and you will have to work your way onto this team. Like, not even work your way into a role. You have got to work your way to keep your job. It's your job to lose. And I don't think this right now. This right now is the most important time for him. And so now Shanahan said he came in great shape at the beginning of phase 1. So they didn't have to try and get him in shape. It was about improving performance at that point. That some of the reporters said that he really stood out in their OTAs. Again, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that. I don't really trust that they know what they're looking at. It just kind of tends to be, well, this guy made some catches, and so he's really stood out. But it's something that I'm watching, and I'm going, okay, Jacob Cowing, this is your moment that you have the most to prove that you probably ever have in your life. This is the most important 4 months of your life ever at this point in your career. So that's who I have. Jacob Cowing, most to prove right now. Who's your number 2, Adam?
So I put a 3-way little caveat between Upton Stout, Renardo Green, and Mustafa. As far as DBs who all have their own story, and they're simply Jair Brown sucked at times, Mustafa had to get healthy, and Upton Stout made rookie type mistakes that we want to see a big jump. That's my storyline. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Okay. So you're basically saying kind of the tier B DBs. Like we have tier A, which I would put Diameter Lenore in.
Yeah, I'm not worried about him. Yeah.
Then tier B, which is going to be you're putting
like
Renardo Green, Upton Stout, Malik Mustafa.
Every other human on the roster.
No, it's not every other human on the. I'm talking about in the secondary.
Yeah,
I would say like tier. I would say like tier C is going to be Marquise Siegel, Darrell Luter,
Jair Brown.
Jair Brown's tier D. So for me,
he's nuts.
Oh my gosh. Now I will say Shanahan gave some interesting perspective on this in his presser yesterday, because he talked about sometimes that sophomore slump and what goes into that, because he said, a lot of times, like when somebody shows up in phase 1, he's like, a lot of times what you'll have is guys who are going into their second year, for rookies, that period from when the season ended until phase 1 started was the only downtime they've really gotten since over the last 18 months of their life. Like they went through the season in college, then a lot of them do bowl games, and because you're going to have either the bowl games or the Senior Bowl or Shrine Bowl. You're prepping for that. You're doing your draft prep, trying to raise your stock, doing all this training for the draft prep. You're doing all these interviews. Then you get drafted. Now you've got to do a crash course because you're 6 weeks behind on everything than everybody else. And you got to get in for the rookie mini camps and learn that. And then they have that little bit of time away. But for them, they've got to get their body ready to play football, not do drills and testing. These are some different training. So they're usually trying to get that, absorb a playbook. Then they hit training camp. Then they go through the whole rookie thing. They hit the rookie wall. And he's like, guys will leave their rookie season. And they're like, man, I need some rest. I gotta rest the mind, rest the body. I've been grinding for almost 2 years straight now. And they let off the gas and they get really out of shape. And then they show up week one of phase one during the off-season program. And it's like, they got to try and get him back into shape in 3 weeks. Like, so they're behind on their explosiveness on some stuff. And these are tight margins in the NFL. And so you see this little like sophomore slump. So, with some of these guys, I go, it's been fun to see Upton Stout has been grinding hard training and everything during this time. So, I will say with Upton Stout, I don't know if he's got as much to prove at this point. I think
he is.
Well, I think we know what he can be. He can be a really good coverage slot guy. I just wonder if there's things that are out of his control. Like, how do you match up against 12 personnel in this defense against one back, 2 tight ends? Is it, and we'll dive into this when I get into Ephesians Prysock. Is that going to be Ephesians Prysock that comes in and he's meant to be a guy that can match up against tight ends and also get involved in the run game, like Jason Pinnock, but hopefully doing a lot better than Jason Pinnock. Is that going to be Nick Martin is your answer for these 12 personnel guys where you have Dre, Fred, and Nick Martin? Is it Jaden Duggar? We don't know. There's a lot of that we don't know. So I will say with Malik Mustafa, I think you have a valid point there. Mustafa showed a lot of flashes his rookie year, but then he tore his ACL at the end of his rookie year. And that completely, as we saw with these spring drills, he's behind on his footwork. He's behind on his on a lot of this drill training and getting everything down. And that you could see that leading to a lot of missed tackles. Angles weren't always great. Footwork wasn't great. Takeoff angles weren't great. Some wasted movement. This is his time to get that under his belt and work on it. So I think you do have a point there. My only issue is that I don't see what's the alternative they have for him. Like, if he doesn't take that next step, what's plan B here?
Well,
who are you putting in that spot? Like, who's you got to prove this to? Because clearly the 49ers have not brought anybody in for competition.
Well, has the most to prove, like, as far as being a freaking good player. Like, it doesn't mean that if they don't have someone brought in behind you, well, then that position is just going to suck this year, I guess. And at week 7, we'll be talking
honestly,
about
that's kind of what it feels like. That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
like
but they still have the most to prove then. It just means
I guess, in the sense of if you aren't who they believe you can be, this is really going to go south quickly.
Yeah.
I do wonder, are they going to bring in a veteran safety here over the next couple months? Because a lot of veterans don't like being signed around this time because they don't want to deal with the offseason programs. They're comfortable where they are. They don't want to move. Like, they don't want to do a moving thing during that time. They'll move or rent out a place to live for the season when the season comes up. Like, that's when they will commit to a team and get out there and do all that. I do wonder if they're going to bring in another safety. I think they have to. I think they have to bring in somebody at least as a camp competition body. Like, if we find out that they signed a vet a week into training camp, I'm going to be really concerned, because that means that in that first week, they got scared to death that their safeties are not going to be good enough for this season. Like, that's what that would be the biggest, like, to me, if that happens. So, and then with Renardo Green, I think you have a point here. Renardo Green, he's going into his 3rd year. This is the year to make your money. Like, when you're a rookie at his stage, year 4 is when you get the extension. So this is his time. If you're going to make that generational money, if you're going to make that $90 million, this is your moment to prove that. Like it's there for the taking. So I do think he has a lot to prove right now. They did bring in Ephesians Prysock as somebody who is a very lengthy guy. Again, I don't know if he's going to play inside or outside. I don't know. I'm speculating off of just his frame. And then what he did at the Senior Bowl and what he did at Washington, both places he played some slot. But they brought him in. They brought in Nate Hobbs, who's can play inside, outside. So he's started in this league on the outside. You still have Darrell Luter in the building. I think he's probably the odd man out right now, but Renardo Green, I don't think he's got a guaranteed. We're certain you have earned and you will keep this starting spot. I think he could lose it. Now, again, it's his job to lose. So that's where it's different for me than Jacob Cowing, who if he doesn't secure a spot, he is the odd man out and he's got to go take that job from somebody else. But so that's interesting. So that's your number 2 trifecta. For me, it's Jordan Watkins now. Jordan Watkins, there was a lot of excitement from his tape coming out of college. He's got some playmaking ability. He's got great speed. We saw flashes of it in the preseason last year, and then he hurt his knee. And then, even when he came back healthy, did not even sniff the field. Didn't even get a whiff. Yeah. Like it wasn't even like wafting kind of smell. It didn't even sniff the field. So for me, I'm like, okay, you have got to carve out a role on this team because the team knows who Jacob Cowing is. And so I will say this, he's got the most to prove because I believe right now he's the odd man out. I think it's between him and Jacob Cowing to see who at the end of this phase 3 is going to be the odd man out. And I think it's both those guys have the most to prove right now, because if you don't make it through, I see him right now at this stage of May 29th as the guy who's going to end up on the practice squad and then might get signed by another team, but probably won't. And that's going to cost him a lot of money. The difference between his contract and a practice squad contract is about $600,000. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of cake. So for me right now, he's got as much to prove as anybody. So it's like Jacob Cowing 1, Jordan Watkins 2B, or 1B is kind of the thing. I think those two guys, because and they're both trying to prove that Demarcus Robinson, the vet, is expendable. That's what they're trying to prove right now. That they can play slot, and that maybe, like Jordan Watkins, maybe you can slide over and play some X or Jacob Cowing. But both those guys have struggled working through contact in their careers, and that's more of a Z role. You got Ricky Pearsall over there, so you got to fill in somewhere in there. Like Demarcus Robinson, the reason they like him is because he can slide over and play X, because he can work through some contact in his route running. It doesn't disrupt him enough. He's not a great route runner, but at least he doesn't get completely, like, there is no chance if somebody lines up and press on you, like sometimes there has been with Ricky Pearsall, with Jacob Cowing, with Jordan Watkins. When somebody presses them, Brock won't even look their way, because these guys struggle working through contracts so much. Now, Demarcus Robinson isn't 100% on that. He can work through some. Sometimes he doesn't. But that leaves him as a viable option there at X, whereas Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins are no option at X. So I think they've got to prove that Jordan Watkins, you can work through some contact. You can be a player that can be a return guy, has special teams value, that you can stay healthy. You know, both you and Cowing were not healthy last year. So I see it as Jordan Watkins because if you look at the potential of the physical abilities of Dejon Stribling, Ricky Pearsall, Mike Evans, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, and Christian Kirk, and the speed that you have, that's one of the speediest wide receiver cores in the NFL when you look at total. Like top to bottom, you're looking at 5 of your 6 guys are all 4.4 or like 4-4-4, I think is the slowest and faster. That's a blazing fast receiving core. Like every guy is around a 4-4 guy or faster. That's blazing fast. And so there's a huge amount of potential there, but those guys have got to prove it now. Get your route running crisp, precise, work on your releases, get it nailed down, and show you can do it.
What's crazy is this is just a big wide receiver show because Ricky Pearsall's on my list, and we just talked through all these receivers. But that's the way that's the way it goes.
Yeah. I mean, it is because I think the reason we say that is because when you look at the wide receiver core last year and the year before, it was a big bag of meh. And so that's why there's so much to prove there, because we've been talking for 2 years about potential in this wide receiver room. We've been talking about the potential of Jacob Cowan. We've been talking about the potential of Jordan Watkins. We've been talking about the potential of Ricky Pearsall. So we've been talking about the potential of this wide receiver room. And then but we haven't seen it actuate on the field. Like we haven't seen Ricky Pearsall be a 1,000+ yard receiver. We've seen flashes, but we haven't seen it consistently because he hasn't been healthy and he hasn't stayed on the field and he hasn't had the playbook down and everything. So I think Ricky Pearsall has a lot to prove to the fans, the media, and the team. I think you are right, because if this is his moment to prove, are you going to be that long-term Z? It's similar to a contract, because they're going to decide after this season if they pick up his 5th-year option. And so this is the year to prove that you are going to be a guy, because once they pick up your 5th-year option, you're guaranteed. If he plays a lot of games, he's going to be guaranteed something like $17 million. So this is a big year for him. And then they pick up your 5th-year option, and they're almost leveraged into they need to give you a long-term contract extension. And so like this is as if it's a contract year for Ricky Pearsall. And he needs to stay on the field, show that these flashes are not just flashes, that they're real, and that he can be a dynamic player, because we need Ricky Pearsall to be what the flashes have shown and be there for 16, 17 games and into the playoffs. Because you pair that with Mike Evans and you have something extremely dynamic, and suddenly you're going to start to see life get a lot easier for Christian McCaffrey. And so there's a lot on him. He needs to be that player. It's clearly his starting Z job is his to lose, and they believe in him. But like you said, he has got to prove that he's not just a guy we talk about if he's healthy, if he could be on the field. If the ifs have got to stop with Ricky Pearsall. Like it is time to prove it. Because they drafted Dejon Stribling, and he could move over and play Z. And and considering they drafted you, Ricky Pearsall, when they had Deebo Samuel and he couldn't stay healthy, and they were in the middle of a contract negotiation with Brandon Ayuk, there's no guarantee that they won't be saying goodbye to you in the future. They won't be drafting your replacement next year. So this is a big time for Ricky Pearsall. I think you're totally right on that one. For me, as I will say, my number 3 guy who's got the most to prove, I think, is Connor Colby, because he's somebody who started some games last year, got benched, and it wasn't for no reason. There were some struggles, there were some mistakes, there were things that were not clean enough. And now you're going into this season, they've signed guys like Toth, Jones, Vidarian Lowe, and they drafted Carver Willis, who we watched his tape. I think he's in the pole position for left guard right now as far as trades. So right now, Connor Colby, and they got Enrique Cruz. So when you start looking at this offensive line room, you're looking at there's 11 guys there, and they usually only keep 10. So who's going to be the odd man out of that offensive line room? Is it going to be Jones, Toth, Colby, Enrique Cruz? Who ends up on the practice squad from this group? For me, I start looking at it and I say, Connor Colby, you're on the outside looking in. Like at this point, you were a 7th round pick, and you got some time last year, so that's your advantage. but they brought in some veterans and they drafted 2 more offensive linemen that they believe in. The other guy was a 4th round pick, so they believe in him. They believe in him more than they do you. And so now, Connor Colby, you're fighting for your NFL life right now. Like, this is going to be the moment that determines, are you a practice squad player for the next couple of years, or do you get to get that NFL paycheck? And are you somebody that can rely on being active on game day? Are you somebody that they look at and they say, after a year, we could move Carver Willis in to center and we could put Connor Colby. Connor, you have shown you can be the left guard here. And we may even redshirt Carver Willis this year off the field and Connor Colby starting at left guard. And because I think it's either Connor Colby is your starter or he's going to be practice squad. And so I think he's got the most to prove on the offensive line. Connor Colby, can you be that guy and not be the odd man out? I think there's some really good potential there for Connor, but he's got to prove it. He's got to prove it now in these offensive line drills, like we saw spring drills with Mr. Chris Forster, and we'll see what happens. So that is my list. I have Jacob Cowling, Jordan Watkins, Connor Colby. You is in the reverse order is you have Ricky Pearsall, you have Renardo Stout.
Yeah,
Renardo Staffout. And then Brock Purdy. So
as like
let us know in the comments.
As a fake, kind of a fake, like just tongue in cheek kind of thing. But
yeah, but let us know in the comments who among those players do you think has the most to prove on the team.
And I want to say I am getting tired of seeing 27.8K subscribers. So I want to ask you guys, if you are watching in the chat and you have not hit the subscribe button, it really does help Johnny out if you can hit that. And then if you can take your phone and show the channel to people, because they're definitely going to see that once it's over so many thousands of subscribers, when I show people, their eyes always kind of like, because at first they just think I'm a weirdo. Fair. First of all, let me say fair. But then when they see the channel and that it's got that many thousands of subscribers, their eyebrows always do this. Oh, like, oh, this is real. Like, yeah, I'm not fake. I'm not just saying like, I'm not some weird 49er fan. I'm legitimate.
Well, you are.
So, yeah, and I own it. And so then they're like, oh, wow, okay. And then I show them, one of the videos, show the X's and O's and how he does this telestrator and all this. And then I show them my ugly mug and, they're like, oh, yeah, cool. So, yes. And even Dawn Dell checking in. Yes, please do. We appreciate you all so much.
Yes.
So
she very
I can't
much
sub twice.
All of you.
Yes, Tracy, we know you can't sub twice, but you can show your friend, your auntie, your cousin. So, yes, and I want to leave
honestly, actually, even above showing somebody like on your phone, texting it to a friend, like copying the link and sending it to somebody. Actually, and here's why: because that's something that a device registers.
Yeah.
So, like the way a lot of these social media algorithms work is if you share a post, I don't know if everybody's ever noticed this. If you share a post, you're going to see almost like the next 30 posts are going to be similar to what you shared, because it tells it that you not only like this enough to like it, you liked it enough to send it to somebody else. And that is like the God tier of juicing the algorithm, is copying a link and sending it to somebody else. Like it's like my Instagram will be filled with like marriage memes and jokes if I copy one and send it to my wife, because it says, okay, they like this so much, they send it to somebody else, and now it's drawing other eyeballs in. So I want to produce more like that. So honestly, copying this and sending it to somebody else, if you want to have a free way to support the channel, that's a huge help. So
yeah, I want to leave you with this because I teased it. I think it's very clever what Seth MacFarlane wrote in this joke, talking Family Guy. This is my all-time favorite. It's not even close. And they always do flashback cutaways to certain things in Family Guy. I think it's part of the genius. And there's a scene where Stewie he's always trying to escape, right? Always, almost in every episode. And it starts raining and it starts storming as soon as he gets out of the window, and it pans down and there's Michael J. Fox wearing his vest from Back to the Future. And he starts screaming, I have to tell you, wait, I have to tell you about your future. And Stewie's like, what? I have to tell you about the future. And then all of a sudden it stops raining. It pans in on Stewie and he says, no, Michael, I have to tell you about your future. Gulp. And I'm just like, oh, dude, that is bad. We all know what happened with Michael J. Fox and, how,
Bro.
like, dude, that is such a next level joke that is like, it's so intelligent. It's so bad. It makes you like gulp like in real time as you watch it. You're like, you're waiting for the funny. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, dude.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how
soon.
this ties into 49ers players having a lot to prove, because now I'm just sad.
Because at the very opening of the show, I said, what grinds your gears, Lois?
Okay.
I gave you and then for the next 3 minutes, people were going through Family Guy, so I told them that I would give you the look. Sometimes we go out. You go off on the weirdest tangents too.
It's true.
So
I have no reason. I have no room to judge. But
I just remember seeing that scene, and I was like, "Oh gosh!"
Humor.
Like
yeah,
very dark.
I'm like, I can have some dark humor, but dang, like.
It was just bad. I remember thinking it was very clever, very clever, and I was like, oof, that's rough. That's a rough joke. Look it up on YouTube if you don't understand. No, but
no.
All right.
Don't. All right. Well,
so in the meantime,
anyways,
I think...
so I'll keep everybody posted on my X about Monday. My mother-in-law is going to be in town, so pray for me.
Oh, come on. She can't be that bad.
And so we'll let you know how
Mike B is correct. Adam is breaking down a scene of the Family Guy. I think it's time to end the show. That's what we are trying to do.
That's our peace out moment. All right. Appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your May. We will see you in June. Until next time, and in between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.